quite there, sorry.
Alon, you want to get your mic ready for you're going to have to use the microphone one.
It's on?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much. Keep forgetting we're live nowadays.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole for Osoyoos Town Council, Monday, February 17th, 2014, 0900 in Council Chambers. First item up would be the agenda. Was there any late items on the agenda? Hearing none, that would be adopted.
Yes. There's two late items.
Oh, okay.
There's two items, Mayor Wells. One is the SILGA resolution on Mussels invasion, and the second one that is the motion to the resolution to SILGA, and the second one is a discussion on the slope development at Marina. We'd like council to hear the results from the public information meeting and either refer for decision this afternoon or further discuss which option.
Okay. So we'll just put those in we're into that business category. The SILGA can be business 2 and the slope will make business 3. Any other additions, changes to the agenda? I'll take a resolution on this, please. Councillor Ryan Rhodes, all in favor, opposed. That agenda has been adopted. Bringing us to business 1, boundary expansion into the regional district of Okanagan-Smilkameen. A letter from Minister of Community, Sport and Cultural Development. The background for this is at the UBCM last September. Both myself, Councillor Plant, Mayor Hovanes from Oliver, and one of their aldermen, and MLA Larson attended with the Minister of Community Development, Coralie Oakes, and had a discussion about boundary expansion changes, some of the issues that are coming up as a result of the correction center being built on Osoyoos Indian Band lands, and just a general kick around on what it would take, how boundary expansion would look like, the possibility of going to a larger community, and so this is over to council as to, basically would be a motion to receive, but we don't do motions here at this meeting at Committee of the Whole. So we're looking for general input from council, CAO Romanko et al. Mr. Romanko?
Yes, just looking at the minister's response, there's, and we in a letter to the minister, there was a request for assistance in assessing the entire situation, and in the minister's response, there is a reference to staffing that to contact in this particular area. So the administration is just looking to council to whether or not you would like us to follow up and set up meeting, workshop, whatever. I'm sure they have some type of process that they go through in this particular area, so it's whether council has the desire to move to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Councillor Rhodes.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I've always been in favor of moving forward with this type of situation. I think that there's going to be a need in our community for more land area and that type of thing, and because of our geographical location, that always becomes difficult because of the impact it may or may not have on some of the bordering residents and farms and that type of thing. And as we move forward, this was a big step for us to find out some of the criteria and find out how the ministry that's responsible for this, how they feel about it and that kind of thing. And certainly, I think the context of the letter would be one of almost insurmountable obstacles if we were to move forward with this. At least that's what I'm seeing in it anyway. However, I would be very much in favor of taking it to the next step, and as these challenges are laid out in front of us, to deal with those challenges as they come forward. You know, it's just one of those kind of things where it's kind of like climbing Mount Everest. You just don't do it on a Sunday afternoon. There's a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing, a lot of stuff that goes into this kind of thing. And but for myself, I'm prepared to move forward. If we get into some of the more costly things, as the letter references, I think we would have to, you know, maybe move this into a resolution stage or phase. But at this time, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to move forward with it. I think opening the doors a little bit with the representative that was given to us in the letter might be a good step. I don't know if I want to jump into a workshop just yet, but certainly one thing at a time, and you know, opening those doors and dealing with the obstacles as we move forward with it make real good sense to me. So.
Thanks, Councillor Rhodes. Yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of information, and at this point, just getting some further background as to possible steps and allowing us to, because there could be a situation further down the road where it becomes a little more critical, and if we had some of that information going forward, I think it would serve council as a whole well. So, Councillor McCordoff?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Rhodes. I think that we need to not just ignore this because it looks like it might be too onerous a job. It looks like it could be a really long-range project, and there's a number of things that could influence this, and the cost is another one. So I do think we should go to the next step and talk to Ms. Edmondson, the director, local government structure, and keep it definitely in our radar and in our back burner, and see whether at some point we can move this forward. I'm not sure that we need to spend a lot of time and energy and money on it right now, but definitely we don't want to let it just drop.
And thank you. And that was a good addition. As you know, we're not going to put I think we should make this as a statement that we're not going to put a ton of staff time into it. Rather than, again, it's good for them to gather that same information. Staff will be here probably after a lot of councillors have come and gone. And mayors, so as we have that information, we can answer some of those questions moving forward. Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, I too would like to see us move forward. This has been on our agenda for quite a number of years, and we've often in the past had difficulty in obtaining good information about what the process is and where we start and where the entry door is, and she's basically, you know, said two things in her letters, that you know, her staff might be able to provide information on alternatives or configuration of service arrangements, which would be interesting to see what they have to say on that. But also that she would consider a study if it was, you know, if it covered some of the issues and questions that she puts forward. And we probably have a lot more information about those now than we did before when we broached this, because, you know, we've done the Northwest Sewer, we've dealt increasingly with our water districts and their issues and so on. So I think that you know, having this outline, as it were, and needing perhaps to talk to the staff, but having this outline of what she considers are issues that she would like to have us address, I think gives us a much clearer, more focused picture of how to approach it.
Okay. Anything, Councillor Plant? Sure.
I might as well put in my 2 cents.
Might as well.
I actually look at this as we have this on the back burner for quite a long time. So I'm at the time frame where I'd like to see this start to move. We're getting to a critical time right now when we talk about population and some of the things that we've put in this letter, such as irrigation and domestic water services, our sewer services, the fire protection. We're getting to a real at a tipping point with this as far as what our population is and where we're going to go. So I see this almost a little bit more urgency than not. I'd really like to have some answers to how this could look and how we could follow, how we could take the next step and what this would look like, because we are getting to those times. When we talk about the corrections facility coming in, we're talking about policing, taxing going up over the 5,000 mark. Those are not happening. Those are happening sooner than later. And we have had this on the back burner for a little bit. So I'd like to, me personally, I'd like to push a little bit more to really find out what those next steps are and if this seriously can be done. So yeah, that's where I stand.
Okay, great. So I think staff can take that as from what they've heard. This Ms. Marika Edmondson, she was a real keener, and we had a great dialogue with her. We were meeting with her, and she kept getting the call to leave for the next meeting, for the next group and that, and she kept staying there and giving us the information. And when we look at district municipalities, a lot of the newer communities that are being branded, such as West Kelowna, that's a district municipality. We have a long-standing one very close to us, which is Summerland. So there is, they don't have a rural area director in a rural area per se. They attend the regional district of Okanagan-Smilkameen as a district municipality. So there are some models that we can look at, and I think there's a general consensus out there that people are looking at district municipalities, but as Councillor Rhodes had earlier stated, the task is formidable. So I think we'll get a little bit of information, and information certainly never hurt anybody. So thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, SILGA resolution. You've certainly heard both myself and this council and the Okanagan Basin Water Board wave the red flag about zebra and quagga mussels and the potential damage they would have to the Okanagan in just so many ways. It's actually alarming. So our parent body, SILGA, Southern Interior Local Government Association, they collect resolutions at this time of year and pass them through the body, which is the Southern Interior, before they head to the UBCM, which is the yearly convention basically in the Lower Mainland, held in the Lower Mainland. So at this point, Councillor Ryan has brought forward a resolution to go to SILGA, and when these resolutions go to SILGA and get approved, they get a gold star status as it heads into the UBCM in the fall, which means it should be on the books. Although Councillor Ryan and myself have been less than happy with the gold star status in the past. We sort of got bonked over the head with our gold star status. But good for Councillor Ryan for proceeding with this. So I'm going to turn this over to Councillor Ryan.
Good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we brought this up 2 weeks ago and said that we would like to consider a couple of topics for a resolution, and this was one of them. And in that time, of course, the Okanagan Basin Water Board has really done a tremendous amount of publicity and marketing on the issue, and I've seen it in a number of papers, including an editorial here at the Osoyoos Times, and so it has been good. I fortunately got a lot of help from different people in exploring this. I spoke to the Water Board, and they provided me with a number of the sources that they had used for their press release, media release, and review, a 5-year review of the Idaho program, some links to the federal regulations that are still out for comment until the end of April, and provincial studies, both a damage estimate and also something that was really based on the protocols for inspection and for decontamination. So I drew from a number of sources and had some good conversations with a couple of people. And so I've come up with this. I wanted to show it to you because, first of all, it was pointed out by Mr. Remenko that for UBCM they now have a guideline that they only want 2 whereases. So they may be long paragraphs, but they do have a format now that they rather rigidly adhere to. Not so much for SILGA, but since this is going onward, that's something that is a cautionary flag. Secondly, I just wanted to focus on the ask, the resolves, and in thinking about it personally, it seemed to me that intercepting these at borders, whether they are provincial borders or international borders, was the best way to go instead of chasing around to every lake in the province and trying to test boats. Although they have been, the Ministry of the Environment here in the province have been training various officials, whether RCMP or I think they've even been doing a little work with the border agency, as well as the conservation officers. And they do have a couple of portable units where they can decontaminate, and they've been piloting a little bit by going to fishing derbies and other events like that, or on certain lakes at certain weekends. But I think that they too agreed that the interception at border points is probably the best way to go. So there are a number of facts there, and it's quite interesting. Some of the early statements said that there were like 14 states. Well, now there are 33 states that have actually found these mussels in their waters. And of course, if you look at maps with little dots of clusters that show where they've been found, the Great Lakes is just sort of almost obscured by all these notations. There are, fortunately for us, our adjacent states of Oregon and Washington, and I think perhaps Wyoming and Idaho have not had infestations, but all of them, with the exception to my knowledge of Washington, do have some kind of testing programs and inspection programs. So they're very much on the alert. And while we have we have provisions in our invasive species regulations, we, I think, probably need more human and financial resources to do the inspections and to make this a higher profile program. At the federal level, as I say, they've got the skeleton of it, and it's out for comment. The comment will be to the end of April. I'm not sure how much of a priority it is or how fast it will move after that. But that, of course, is key if it's to be done at the borders themselves. So right now, given the data and the information and the facts that are indicated in the whereases, we're left with 2 requests. And the first is that, since we're directing this to the UBCM, that they call upon the provincial government to provide Ministry of the Environment with additional and sufficient financial and human resources to undertake boat inspections at points of entry and within the province. And then also that the UBCM call upon the provincial government to urge the federal government to pass its pending legislation as soon as possible. and that the provincial government offer its cooperation to partner with the CBSA to ensure appropriate inspection and enforcement and international border crossings in the province, or into the province, I guess. So those are two that I've suggested, and I know Mr. Rumenko was mentioning a couple of other ideas that came to him in looking at this, and I'm sure council might. So I think we see this as a draft at this point, and if there are, I mean, clearly we have to reduce the number of whereases to get that gold star. But I'd also like to have feedback on the two resolutions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manko, any comments on that?
Just that this probably should go to council's meeting in the afternoon
Okay.
for a formal resolution to go forward to
Okay,
SILGA.
okay.
So however council wants to deal with the final format,
Sure.
but it should come with a formal resolution.
Okay, I think Councilor Ryan will have some time to put that together. And if not, we'd probably have a time frame for the next meeting. Or
No, I think
Where is
the...
I want it by the 28th of this month.
28th, okay,
yeah.
okay. So
that
we'll
was
we'll deal with it in some fashion this afternoon. And just adding a bit of information further, the provincial government's really been on top of this to the point that there's, I believe, $100,000 fine out there now, but they just don't have the wherewithal to put it in gear. You know, the provincial and the federal haven't meshed, so it's certainly sitting at the federal level for them to sort of allow us to tie us together, and Canadian Border Services, I think they're quite willing to move on it, but we just need the legislation and the background to put it together. And I'm glad the recital is down to two whereases.
They may be long, but
Councilor Rhodes?
Thank you. So I'd just like to commend Councilor Ryan for putting this document together. I certainly don't have a problem with any of the whereases, but if the format needs to be changed or edited, I would suggest just cramming the information together under a couple of them rather than removing any of the information out of it. And you know, for anybody that's watching this this discussion about this, if you haven't heard about these creatures and the harm they can do, boy, you sure got to start paying attention. I know the border services is one barrier that we can put up, but because we share the water, you know, many of the people who use our lake don't even cross our border and that type of thing, and so it requires a lot of collaboration with our neighbors to the south, and I'm kind of glad that there's somewhat of a willingness to do that and that kind of thing. And yeah, you just, I think I'd be pretty confident in saying that these mussels can destroy a lake and cause people not to use it. And to be proactive, like Councilor Ryan is with this document, is great.
Great. Anything further from council? Okay, Councilor McCordoff?
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes said it very well. I think that Councillor Ryan has done a terrific job in researching all of the information and put together a great document. So I think we can adjust it a little bit. I say the royal we, that would be Councillor Ryan, I'm sure, and send it to SILGA. I think that's very important.
Okay, so we'll bring this forward this afternoon for the resolution. Councilor Ryan?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just picking up on your comment about the penalties that are in the BC-controlled alien species regulations. I have a document which I will circulate to council, and in it, it has inspection and decontamination form, which sort of is to be used, you know, to inspect. It has the decontamination requirement summary, and it has a few other things, a flow chart about, you know, how a watercraft decision is made and the sources, areas, and so on for these. It strikes me that it might be good for us to put this on our website because, you know, if people saw what kind of questions are being asked, you know, it would somehow make all that sort of inspect and dry and whatever, you know.
Clean, dry, inspect.
Clean, dry, yeah. It would put a little meat on those bones because it's a rather, it's a very comprehensive thing, and also it's interesting, in speaking to the biologist at the Minister of the Environment, he said that one of the ones that is a concern is the wakeboard boats, because they do take in ballast and then they expel it again, and if there's any contamination, you know, inside, it's going to get into the water in which they pump this. So I think that, you know, I'll circulate this, and I think putting it on our website in some fashion, whether it's as a document or pulling these out, you know, and putting them on so that people can sort of start a little bit of self-examination and of their craft and know what to do, would be a good first step.
Well, that sounds like a good idea, and maybe we could get it in a easy-to-read bullet form that people like to, you know, just grab the high points. And because really, when we're talking about the public and what's going on here, it comes down to education, education, education. If every boat operator was well-informed and educated, we wouldn't have this problem. So if that's part of it, and maybe you can work with Donna Core and see how that would look and how that would set up. Anything further from council? We will revisit this in the afternoon. Next item up would be the addition to the agenda, Business 3, Slope Development. I'll turn this over to Director Cunningham. This comes around after our public hearing meetings on both the gyro development and the Marina slope development as to what we were going to do in the beautification process. Last year it was left in natural condition of slope gravel with a few weeds in that. Generally it was quite acceptable. As I say, this is what I like to call my front yard. So I live with the goings on there and the plantings and vegetation or lack thereof. And last year was just fine. The town crew did a good job. But as we're looking at this beautification, stabilizing the slope, particularly weed control and concerns, council has looked at 4 options on how to treat this from water and shrubs and terracing and rock and hydro seeding. So we've already had it, and the people that came out to the public hearing, of which there were 30 plus, 40 minus, somewhere in there, and they all filled out sheets and information sheets and comment sheets. And so when this came back, we looked at that, and council's moving ahead to make a decision on where we're going with it. But a big part of it was the input into the slope and what would work and what wouldn't work, because there's some areas there that are fairly steep. So with all that background, I'll turn it over to Director Cunningham, and he can add probably some more background on what this is all about.
I'll add a little bit more context, but you very fully covered a lot of it. February 6th, we had a very successful public open house. There was 30 members at least of the public who were there, and 23 of them dutifully filled out and returned questionnaires stating what their preferences were. Some of that information was part of the information package that staff subsequently fed into the budget meeting last Thursday, and so all the issues were very thoroughly covered by council. There was a very unanimous decision making on Gyro Park and on many of the other landscaping projects. The only area where there was unresolved decisions was with respect to, as the mayor has mentioned, the Marina parking lot slope. There's 4 options there. 2 of them seem to be the focus of attention by the public and council. The first one is a decorative rock slope for $31,796,000. And the other one is number 4 is a dryland seed slope with shrub planting, $48,000, and it is 813. Just put my glasses on to confirm that figure. That's correct. So I'll just reread the little paragraph that follow those options. And I was talking about the feedback that we got from the questionnaire service. The majority preference for option 4 may have come from cost considerations, though the comparative estimates were not revealed at the open house, though there are certain discussions about it, I think. Certainly influential were feelings that the area is already a rocky landscape and the need to avoid a so-called heat island effect. Opposition to other less favored options were strongest against number 1. However, many respondents expressed broad concerns about potential weed infestations, which should be a serious concern given our experience with the Marina riparian planting. One respondent mentioned the need for including a fence along the top edge, which would increase costs. So I went, after that meeting, promptly went out to the consultants and asked them for their feelings in terms of the respective costs and benefits of each of the options. I also asked them, roughly speaking, what they thought it would cost to put a galvanized chain link fence along the top, and their figure was $10,000. That's a very preliminary figure. So going into the two options, and there's really minuses and pluses with both of them. Previously, staff had made a recommendation for number 4, but given the mixture of the situation between these two options, the minuses and pluses, I'll withdraw that recommendation. I just want council to have a good discussion, full understanding of what's involved in each of them, and make their own determination, if that's okay with you, Mr. CEO.
Yes, and I guess what we're looking for is that if there was some additional information you council wanted before making a decision, because it is crunch time if we want if we want to meet the the summer installation, and given that this is an expenditure, we would move this to the agenda this afternoon for a formal resolution on which option to pursue.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just read out the information that we got from our consultant with regard to the two most favored options. So the rock mulch analysis, option 1, advantages, lowest installation cost, low preparation cost and time requirements, low maintenance, no irrigation. Disadvantages, heat island effect, erosion under the weed fabric, possible displacement of rock mulch after rainfall, increase of weed development due to silt built-up and airborne seeds, weed control by spraying, refuse collecting within rock mulch, visual impact, lack of wildlife habitat. Then going on to the option number 4, hydroseeding and planting analysis, advantages, low installation cost, low maintenance, low water use through drip irrigation to shrubs only, erosion control through root stabilization of embankment by pioneer plants, reduced maintenance once the vegetation is established, reduced weed development once the vegetation is established, reinstatement of wildlife habitat, I don't know how real that is down there, positive visual impact, reduction of heat island effect. And the disadvantages are more expensive installation costs than rock mulch, soil preparation required, hydroseeding season dependent, refuse collecting within vegetation, initial weed control by hand. So with that, I'll just leave it up for discussion amongst council as to what kind of option you would like to support by resolution this afternoon, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't think we're going to, I've got a fairly strong objection to that fence coming forward, but I'll deal with that this afternoon. Seeing as that was brought forth out of all the people that have dealt with this, brought forth by one person, I'll be the one person on the other side that say that it shouldn't go. But that's this afternoon's issue. Council, do we need more before we go into debate? That's where we are now. There's no use. I don't want to debate this now when you debated it again this afternoon. So, any input required? I think we all know there's water. Some of the options require water. Some don't. But we'll go into that again, as I said. Councillor Rhodes.
Thanks. Late in the meeting, or maybe subsequent to the meeting, there was, or maybe it was even at our budget meeting, there was something brought up about water being available on site when we previously thought there was not. Is that correct, or?
Yes. The engineer, Terry Underwood, at the meeting pointed out that there's water. I believe he said at the north end, sorry, the west side of the Marina parking lot. Certainly close enough that the irrigation lines could be taken up from that and wind themselves up the hill. So yes, there is water available.
In addition to that, if we were to go with some kind of planting and that type of thing, and I know I asked this before, is the slope going to be stable with both of these options, or a combination of it? We're not going to struggle with every time it rains, is it going to wash some of it out or a portion of it, or I don't think that's ever been really answered.
Yeah. Well, I've asked the consultants that question, and they say they're assured that the rock would be stable in both instances. Obviously, the stability of the hydroseeding option would depend very much on when you got it in, and that there wasn't a torrential rainfall as soon as you put that lovely colored green stuff all over the slope. You know, if there was a rainfall the day after you did that, then obviously it would come off and it would probably have to be done again. But assuming the plants and the seed get stability quick enough, and it's a quick growing mix, then I think we should be okay. But obviously you should choose your time very carefully when you seed the plant.
I'm going to offer some information as a follow-up on that, and offered as information. If you go down and you take the sort of a cut into Fuji Court, there's a cul-de-sac down there, turnaround cul-de-sac with a curb on it, and there's a water runoff there off of that cul-de-sac that runs down the bank that has a placed rock about this big, and so that has been there for the full year for sure, and receiving whatever little flash floods we've had in that, and it looks very, very sound when you look at that rock area. So the rock area certainly looks like it would stand, and of course the hydro seeding, it may at some point have to need a little booster spray depending on our natural irrigation to get that seed, originally germinated. Yeah. I think as you suggested, we target to the best of our knowledge to a bit of a rainy season, but of course nature will make its own decision on that. Councillor or Director Cunningham?
Yes, I agree with that. In terms of the rock slope sizing, the rocks would be 150 millimeters, and that works out to 6 inches a piece. That's quite normal for a slope like that, and obviously you don't want to go for round river bottom pebbles, so you want to get something that's got a bit of an edge to it so that it'll stay in shape.
So we'll probably have council down there at lunchtime driving by to look at the fragmented rocks. Councillor Rhodes.
Thanks again. I just wanted to mention that as we're sitting here discussing this, and I'm not trying to be argumentative about anything, but many of the real time sensitive projects that we were moving forward with at Jarrow Beach and that kind of thing had a real tight timeline because there was an urgency to get it done before our tour season kicked in. If we wanted to look at this a little bit more, I don't see that following, that tight timeline program. This is not something that's going to be used or walked on, or it's more of an aesthetic thing. And if we're struggling with this in any way, if we want, more time, I think this would be one of those modules of this project that we could separate out, you know, and look at it a little bit more and not have any effect on the overall project. If I'm wrong, I would urge you to tell me that. And
yeah, I totally see your point about that, obviously, and I think this is the feeling around the room. Gyro Park is the plaza is the absolute first priority, and because we want to combine that with the new Gyro Park parking lot, it can be done by one contractor, so those two projects are the highest priority. In terms of the priority with respect to the slope, it would come down to when realistically can you do the hydro seeding, and I don't think that you could do that in the height of summer. So that would suggest that even if you delay the decision making on that today, you'd either have to be prepared to make the decision before the hot season comes, or on the advice of the architects confirm that it would be possible in the fall season to do that.
Mr. Remenko?
Just for clarification, I thought the sense of urgency was that we wanted to be able to package this so that it could go out to tender. The implementation could wait, but it was a matter of getting the appropriate contractors to do the appropriate job as a package tender.
That is a consideration in that all these other projects that we talked about, I think could be well suited for one contractor, and probably a local contractor as well. Certainly the other time constraint is that we do want to see all of the works, no matter how we package them and time them, done this year, because part of our contract with Outland was for them to do all the design work, all the tendering, and the construction supervision. And they have a trained person on staff who will be coming down here and supervising the work, and I'm very, very enthusiastic about that particular component. It's going to, I think, avoid a lot of problems that we've had in the past. So worst case scenario would be to delay anything past the point where we'd lose on those services, because it would be very difficult, for instance, to renegotiate the contract to say, well, this little piece we want done next year. I'd sooner try to avoid that. It's possible to do it, but obviously for convenience, it's best to have the supervisor person down here through all of the projects.
Okay, this dialogue's just going to expand a little bit, and certainly not to put anyone on the spot. With some of our around the marina planting last year, in particular around the washroom planting of the phases last year, completely different project than this. There are a lot of dead plants, particularly some pine trees. They maybe were Mughal pines, those sort of round ones that are there. So the question comes up as we're moving forward with this one here, which is completely different and different folks. Are we going to remove those? Because being my farming background says don't nurse stunted plants. When they go in, if they don't go in your first year, you should be looking at replacing them. So I guess because these questions are going to come up from the public, guaranteed. As we're going ahead with new plantings, what about the ones left behind? And I'm happy if we can just make this as a referral to staff to come up with a program. Maybe it's already in place that I'm not aware of. So this is just sort of...
Well, I can respond to that, and I'm sure the CEO would as well. I've already approached the CEO, and he'd already been thinking about this, that we need to clean up the riparian areas. There was a perfect storm there in terms of internal project supervision, the consulting advice that we got, and the actual contractor. It doesn't get any better. We need to fix that situation. I weekly hear complaints about that down there, to the point that I don't think I want to go to the coffee shop anymore. But you know, it has to be done. It wasn't done properly in the first place. So what I'm suggesting is that we get a competent contractor, landscape architect, to go in there and say, your best plan is to take it all out and start from scratch, or these are the valuable plants that should be kept and everything else should be taken out, and here's the plants that you should put there in their place. And I'm not going to be so bound as we were the last time round by what constitutes gold standard of riparian planting. We need to look at our own ecological systems here and confirm what would be the best plants that would take seed there and stand and would, you know, survive with some minimal irrigation and so forth. We already got our $50,000 back from the Ministry of Environment, so I'm quite prepared for which they held us accountable for putting riparian planting in there, so I'm quite prepared to, in the future, put my head down.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romanko. Any?
Just that we will be removing the dead plants. There's some that are kind of half.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably leave those, but the dead ones are very, from aesthetics, aren't very good. It's just a matter of work timing now and that. So, but they will be gone. And again, the perfect storm of grass is growing, irrigation not getting to some of those plants. You know, they could have been the right plants, but the grasses grew up around them, and we didn't have the irrigation system to battle that. So we move on. We'll fix it.
Okay, and I think that this part that we're bringing forward to the public is really good and really important. My one recommendation from my 25 years of farming was you get pretty tired of nursing sick plants. If they're half there, in my mind, take them out and get something that wants to jump at it and go. So anyway, I'm glad that this is in hand, and I think it's important for the public to hear this. Mr. Lacey, thank you very much. This will be dealt with and is in hand. Councilor McCordoff, Roads.
Thank you. It seems to me that we did have an arborist come in when we were taking out some of the trees in the Y property, and I think that the arborist did a report on suggested trees, and I'm not sure whether that included small plants or not, but we may have some of that information already on in a report. Am I correct, Mr. Cunningham?
Yeah, I think it was more tree and shrub oriented rather than plant, but certainly we'll take a look at it. We have other ideas too as to how to cover this off in a cost-effective manner, which we could talk about at some other time.
Sure.
Councilor Rhodes.
Thanks. Just another quick question. These particular modules, like this particular one, the two options that we have separate pricing on them. Excuse me. Do they have any budget implications? I think I need a memory refresh about the funding portion of that, because that would be a motivator to move forward with it.
Yeah, they do. As I explained in a previous meeting, for instance, if we'd selected the terraced wall with decorative rock and shrub planting option at $146,000, that would have taken us outside our budget. The two that we've left with are more within our budget parameters, and especially, of course, the decorative rock slope. It's the cheapest of the bunch. So it, if we can save some money here without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that positions us well for the total budget for doing all the other projects. Because once the landscape architects get into the detailed costing of this, they may have some sort of surprises. And I know there's one which you have to be aware of, is that we've got an island in the Gyro Park parking lot which doesn't have water to it. There was no water provided at the time it was constructed, so we're going to have to burrow a line underneath it. So there are such things like that which costs may go up in other places. So it behoves us, I know you don't like that word, but it would behoove us, I'll say it again, to be careful with our options on the slope so that we've got the flexibility to move monies around elsewhere.
Councilor Rose.
And just one final thing, I promise. I would be, through the CAO to our director that's here, I'd be very interested in hearing an opinion from the director that ultimately would be responsible for the maintenance and care of this area as well. And it doesn't have to be now, and it doesn't have to be at the meeting, but just an opinion of what, his thoughts are on the two, and perhaps even an opinion of which one he would like to see. Although I know that's somewhat rhetorical, I think I know the answer already. But
Is this to support a vote?
Would that be a possibility?
Oh, yeah.
to
Ron
do
can
that?
be here to, he'll come up with his preferred option.
And that was under the seeking more information
Yes.
for the afternoon. Okay. Okay, we could hear that now, unless you want to polish. This is not to put anyone on the spot. This is why we normally have agendas, so there's prep time out there. However you want to deal with it, Mr. Director Doucette.
Do you have? Are you willing to express your preferred option? You have to come to the mic.
Obviously, there is no maintenance-free options. I guess we have to try to do is keep it to the minimum. Personally, like I say, you add water to that area. Obviously, the rock option for me would probably be the best. How we get to the weeds after, no matter what, it's going to be a difficult area to get to. That's a given. But how do we minimize the work? I think is less plantings. I mean, I realize there's that heat problem. I'm not sure that's a reason to not do this. But, and obviously, as far as Public Works is concerned, keeping the maintenance down to a minimum, especially in a difficult area to get to, would be my option. But I believe in the four that we had, option one, I believe is probably the easiest one for us to maintain. Even if the weeds do get in there, it might be somewhat fairly easier to deal with those.
Okay. Thanks, Director Doucette. And I guess a further question that is a part of this. What's your opinion on hydro seeding? Because, we see some successful hydro seeding, but when you're driving down highways and sketchy areas, there's also a lot of, and it's not that important on the highway as it is here, we see a lot of less than successful hydro seeding, if I may use that term. And what makes it good? Is it, additional water, additional spray, better germination, luck of the draw? Because if we get sketchy hydro seeding down there, I don't think the folks are going to be all that happy with that either. Would you like to comment on that statement?
Sure. I believe it's like anything else. If you have a good foundation, you need something that will support the hydro seed to give it a chance. There's no two ways about it. I believe Alain mentioned that as well, as far as the preparation is going to be a little more expensive for the hydro seeding. Okay. And then you have to be careful what you put in as a topsoil or whatever the case is. Make sure it's weed free, because you're going to end up with the Marina, right? And then we don't want that anymore, obviously. So, and again, there's good and bad on those areas, but again, like I say, it could be a crapshoot for sure. But back to my original opinion is option one in my case. So, but again, hydro seeding has worked. I think we've done it around the tennis courts and stuff. We put this fancy grass that we weren't supposed to cut. But then, like I say, we had to cut it because it doesn't look very well, very good as well. So, again, like I say, these maintenance-free options, there's not too many out there.
Okay. Just maybe a couple of questions, Councilor McGordoff.
Thank you. I just had one other question concerning option one with the rocks. On some of the areas up towards Kelowna where I've seen rocks on the hillsides, they have cemented them in. Now, I'm wondering if that is considered in this, or so they were loose, they're just going to be loose, and it sort of depends on the slope. Is that a sensible thing to do, or was that just not part of the game plan?
Well, it wasn't part of the game plan. It's called a rock marsh, right? So
Okay.
they're in there loose. There could be the possibility of some of them tumbling, but they'll be put in by machine with, I'm sure, some hand
Placing.
rearrangements afterwards. There's always the possibility, especially on the steepest portion in the middle there, that some of them could start coming down.
And maybe they could be cemented or something like that. There might be a
Yeah,
different approach to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll save all my other good things for the debate this afternoon. At council, the question is, council has enough information to proceed this afternoon. Okay, thanks a lot, and certainly didn't mean to put you on the spot on that. Thanks a lot, Director Giuseppe.
That was off the record.
I don't know if that's allowed. Okay, is there anything further? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Councillor Rhodes McCordoff, all in favor. 5-minute break. Hi.
So Glenn is sitting at the airport.